You guys want to take these comfortable seats on the table?
Move forward so we can hear him. He doesn't
Small room, I guess, so lots of room up here. Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming out. This presentation is for the design of your septic systems. At our booth earlier, I was told that a lot of people were asking questions about rules and things like that, and more of that stuff was done earlier when Lori Vetter was here presenting her portion from Department of Health. So most of our things will be about what type of systems and what kind of factors determine what kind of systems you're going to be designing. So all of you have the handouts. We're just going to go through these handouts, and my boss Wayne Waters in the back, he's free to answer any questions you guys have. Just let us know. Okay, so we'll start from the beginning. This is the septic system for the homeowner. The septic system for the homeowner is called an individual wastewater system, or IWS. It is the owner's responsibility to take care of the system. The IWS will be inspected, operated, and maintained. You will hire a contractor with the appropriate license to construct the IWS, so it can't just be anybody. You have the IWS inspected by the design engineer. If you hire us, one of us will come by to the site to make sure that it was built as designed. And so it must be approved by the Department of Health before it can be used. The appropriate transfer of or sales documents and provisions shall bind the new owners to the operation and maintenance of the IWS. And any and all changes made to the IWS will be submitted to the Department of Health for review and approval. So this all comes from an owner certification form that the owner would have to sign along with our design before it can be approved by Department of Health. Okay, the components of the septic system. Okay, one part is the septic tank with the picture below. Capacity depends on the amount of flow coming from your home, and that's determined by the number of bedrooms or bedroom-like rooms. Okay, so just because it's not called a bedroom doesn't mean that it won't be counted. And Department of Health has their own rules as to what they consider as a bedroom-like room. Okay. The next page, oh wait, actually the first one below, that is a fiberglass septic tank. Orenco, that's one of the companies that provide this type of tank. This next page is a plastic septic tank. This is the infiltrator system tank that was on display inside the convention hall. And the third one is a concrete septic tank. This is a precast concrete tank. Okay, and also there will be some situations where an aerobic tank will have to be used. These are typically used when the groundwater level is very high or near the surface, because they don't want the effluent coming out from the tank to be going into the groundwater. So a lot of cases say, like if you're close to the ocean or near a stream or in a flood zone, you might need this. So that is another thing you would have to consider. Okay, the next item is the distribution box. This is coming after the tank, but before the disposal system. So you can see the box is partitioned and there are pipes coming out of it. We determine how many of those you need, but that's to evenly distribute the flow out into the disposal system. Okay. And this disposal system they come in different designs. One of them is the one below that, which is the absorption bed. It's a long line of infiltrators, which the display that had the tank also had these to distribute the liquid. The next page is an absorption trench. The previous one was a field, so the entire rectangular area has been excavated. In this case, you're only dealing with the actual line of the infiltrator. Okay, and a mound system, which is below that. These cases are very rare, but if for some reason you cannot construct your disposal system below ground, they allow you to distribute it above ground and mound the dirt over it. But you can see that because you want the lines, the piping underground, you will need another device to pump the liquid back up to the surface to distribute your effluent. Okay, and the next page has a sample picture of an elevated mound, as you can see. Figure 11 and figure 12 is a sample seepage pit. Some of you may have an existing cesspool at your house. It's basically just a giant hole in the ground, vertical, 6 or 8 feet in diameter. But the difference between a cesspool and a seepage pit is that for seepage pits, the effluent is being treated before going into the pit. Okay, in the old days, the cesspool was just a hole in the ground. All that waste coming out of the house goes directly into the ground. And that's why they're kind of going against doing things that way now, because the effluent is not being treated. So at least this way, the septic tanks treat the liquid before going into the ground, making it safer for disposal. Okay. So now we go into design considerations. These are the things that we think about when we're trying to design your system. Okay. And the first item is the number of systems that you're allowed to have. And that is one system per 10,000 square feet of lot area. So if you have 21,000 square feet, you can have up to 2 IWSs on your property. Okay, and the flow, like I said earlier, is based on the number of bedrooms or bedroom-like rooms. For residential systems, up to a maximum of 5 per system. And this flow will determine the minimum size of the septic tank. So the basic rule that we follow is that the flow will be based on the number of bedrooms times about 250 gallons per day. So that's what we use to determine the size. So the only thing you really need to be careful of is if you have a lot of bedrooms, say 5, you better make sure that you don't have any bedroom-like rooms in addition to that, because you will be going over the maximum allowed. Yeah. So you will either have to change the way you design the bedroom-like room to something that won't be that way, or you may have to take away a bedroom. Okay, the percolation is the amount of time it takes for the liquid to go through the soil. And by figuring this out, we do a percolation test. We dig a 1-foot diameter hole about 3 feet deep into the ground. We fill it with water, and then we time 10-minute or half-an-hour intervals. We figure out the amount of drop within that time to figure out the percolation rate. And as long as it is within 60 minutes per inch or better, then it's fine. We had a few cases where it was worse than that, and soil replacement will have to be considered. So they would have to dig up a lot of the bad soil and replace it with something better so that it will be able to percolate into the ground and do what needs to be done. So one good example of a type of soil that does percolate well is sand. Sand, as soon as you dump the water in, it just drains out. It's hard to even get a time, but that's probably the best that you can get. It's pretty much determined by the amount of voids you have in between. So when you look at it very closely, you know, if it's really pasty clay, it's very hard for the water to seep through that. And that's why it slows down the rate that the liquid goes through the ground. So if there are more voids, if it's more gravelly, then it's easier for the water to go through, then the perk rate is better. Okay, the design area. The percolation rate determines the absorption area needed per bedroom. We get that from a chart. And combine that with the number of bedrooms to determine the required absorption area, which would be in square footage. So if we do more of a horizontal type system where it's above ground, not above ground, but near the surface, like the absorption beds you saw earlier, if say the average square area is about maybe 1,500 square feet, you know, that would be like a 15 by, what's it? 15 by, yeah, 15. Yeah, so we would have to do the width and the length to figure out the total area that we would need. And that's if it's along the surface. If it is going vertically like the seepage pit is, you're only taking the area of the walls of the pit. So you would have to do calculations to determine that. So that will also, you know, these considerations will affect the length and width, or also the depths, depending which system you're doing. So, you know, a lot depends on how much area you guys have on your lots as well. We deal with a lot where there's not that much area, so, you know, we got to be really careful about what we decide to use. Okay, because of this, the design setbacks. Septic systems will be located in an area outside of setbacks. And it says see table 2 for setback requirements. That is on the next page. I'm not going to go through it all, but you can kind of see the setback distances there. You know, they're considering walls of your building, the property lines, bodies of water like the stream or the ocean, large trees because of the roots. If they expand out and get attracted to the effluent, they'll start tearing up your system. And also for wells, you don't want to be too far, too close to that. You got to be within 1,000 feet from that. Okay. Yeah, so that's why even though you might have, say, 10,000 square feet on your property, that doesn't mean that we can place them anywhere on the property. Yeah, we have limitations. Okay, and the slope of the land. Absorption beds should not be constructed on land with a slope greater than 8%. The slope of the land along with the available usable areas will identify the possible location of system and type of disposal system. So you guys already saw the picture of the absorption bed. You know, if you can see that the slope is very steep, it's very hard to construct something like that over a large area. And that's why you would be allowed to use a seepage pit in this case. This is because you're just going vertically. It's a lot easier to deal with steep slopes when you're in that situation. Okay, and the groundwater elevation. The septic disposal system must have at least 3 feet of vertical distance between the bottom of disposal system and the groundwater. If the 3 feet cannot be maintained, an anaerobic tank must be used. So this is what we talked about earlier. Okay, and the portable water sources serving public water systems or wells. If the disposal is within 1,000 feet radius of a public well, an aerobic unit must be installed. So again, to prevent potential contamination, it would be safer to use this. Okay, and pumping, like I mentioned before, it doesn't have to be only for elevated mounts, but anytime the elevation of the house, the building, or the tank is lower than disposal area, then because the lines are made to be gravity flows, so usually you have it above and have it flow downward towards the disposal system. If for some reason you have to go up, then it has to be pumped. Okay, and variance. Okay, we had a few cases here where we could not construct within the setbacks. So we have to fill out more forms and get approval to go outside of the setbacks. And just a short summary of the process. We fill out the forms, turn in an application with the fees, and then they issue a public notice, or you guys would have to do that. Public notice in the Garden Island and Honolulu Advertiser newspaper, and given 30 days for the public to respond. And depending on the responses, maybe a public hearing would be possible. And then Department of Health will decide and order a draft for the owner to review, and if everything goes well, they will grant it. Okay. The disposal method. So the horizontal is what I had said earlier, an absorption bed. That's what we designed the most, which uses an infiltrator or perforated pipe, usually a few feet deep. It's got to be at least 18 inches, and it requires a lot of horizontal surface area. So, like I said before, if your lot is very small, then it becomes very tough to fit this in. Okay, absorption trench, which is also similar to a bed, but the absorption area is only along the infiltrator. Yeah, whereas the bed covers the entire area under the infiltrators. And then the elevated mount used when the groundwater level is near the surface. Okay, then the vertical, which is the seepage pit, like I said before, 6 or 8 foot diameter. Maximum depth is limited to the groundwater elevation. So again, you need to have that 3 foot clearance, so you can't go lower than that. If you hit bedrock, or also the depth that the machinery can dig. I have seen, well not seen, but I've seen paperwork where existing cesspools have been, say, 30 feet, not too much deeper than that. Yeah, a seepage pit can only be used if restrictions will not allow an absorption bed to be designed. Yeah, so again, they're trying to stay away from that as much as possible. So we always have to try and see if it is possible, based on the design, if an absorption bed can fit. And if it does, we will go that route. And if for some reason we try everything and we cannot, then we can go more towards the seepage pit route. And also, we have done some absorption bed / seepage pit combinations. So a smaller absorption bed and maybe one seepage pit to fit in a smaller area. And they have approved that before. Okay, and how does it work? Okay, this is very technical, but in case any of you are interested in how they do work, we put them down here. But like my boss said, most of the homeowners are more concerned with how much they cost than how they actually work. But we put them there just for you guys if you are interested. Okay, so page 10, we're on construction and final approval. Okay, once the design is approved, they will send a letter stating that the construction of your septic system must be done by a licensed contractor holding an A, C9, C37, C37A, or C43 license. Okay, this is required. So when you do choose a contractor, make sure that they do have one of these licenses. When we go out to inspect, we have a form that we need to fill out, and this is one of the things that they do mention for us to tell them. So make sure that you have that covered. Okay, the system will be inspected and certified by the designing engineer, which would be us if you hire us to do it. And the as-built drawings and inspection report form will be submitted to the Department of Health for approval. So after we do the as-built, we send in the form, they will review it again, and then if approved, the Department of Health will issue a letter authorizing the use of the septic system. And at that point, that's when you can start hiring a contractor to construct your system. Okay, and the maintenance of the system. Have a professional inspect your septic system at least every 3 years and pump your septic tank as necessary, generally every 3 to 5 years. Your system may require removing of the solids by a professional. Use water efficiently. The more water a household conserves, the less water enters the septic system. Don't dispose of household or hazardous waste in sinks or toilets. Dental floss, feminine hygiene products, diapers, cat litter, paper towels, and other kitchen and bathroom items can clog and potentially damage septic system components. Flushing household chemicals, gasoline, oil, pesticides, antifreeze, and paint can stress or destroy the biological treatment taking place in the system, or might contaminate surface waters and groundwater. So if you do go back to reading how it works, there are microorganisms in the tanks that are breaking down these wastes. And if you're killing them with all of these chemicals, you're defeating the purpose of having this system. Okay. Care for your septic system. Avoid driving or parking vehicles on your septic system, okay, because some of them might not be designed to withstand heavy loads. Okay. If for some reason we know that your design will be, say, under a driveway, then the contractor should be getting traffic-rated materials, the tanks or the infiltrators, so that they will be able to handle those loads, and you can drive over them without damaging them. Okay. Plant only grass over and near your septic system to avoid damage from roots. So again, that's why you want to keep the system away from big trees. Even after we design the system, you don't want to plant any trees near it because you don't want the roots to be damaging the system. And keep roof drains, basement sump, pump drains, and other rainwater or surface water drainage systems away from the disposal system. Flooding the disposal system with excessive water slows down or stops treatment processes and can cause plumbing fixtures to back up. So, if you oversaturating the soil with all of this runoff, it kind of makes it harder for your effluent to also percolate into the ground. If it starts to flood, then everything's going to back up, and then you're going to have problems with your system. Okay, and the conclusion. If properly designed, constructed, and maintained, your septic system can provide long-term effective treatment of household wastewater. If your septic system isn't maintained, you might need to replace it, costing you thousands of dollars. A malfunctioning system can contaminate groundwater that might be a source of drinking water. And if you sell your home, your septic system must be in good working order. Okay, and that concludes our presentation. If anybody has any questions, Wayne Watt is there. Anybody have? Yeah? Okay.
I just was wondering, people are always trying to sell something and make a buck. So, is it recommended some of those products that we put into our system to supposedly improve the septic system?
Not sure. I guess if it's recommended, you should put it. You should try it. But
The manufacturer
yeah.
recommends it.
But if it's, I wouldn't recommend it if it kills the bacteria, because it's the bacteria.
Biological system.
Yeah, it's a biological system. But I guess if it's designed for a septic system, it should work. I'm not an expert on the additives to the septic system.
But normally it shouldn't function properly
It
without
should.
adding anything.
Right. You shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't add anything, as long as you don't dump chemicals and other stuff on the system.
I think they might be doing that to help extend the time maybe between pumping. Maybe if you pumping really often, then you need the microorganisms to speed up the decomposition process. I'm thinking that's what those chemicals are for.
So it's microorganisms, not chemicals you add into the system.
Well, the chemicals you're adding are
With a feed for the microorganisms.
yeah.
Toilet bowl cleaners kill the bacteria, but antibiotics in there to beef it up, and it's, it's a game.
Yes.
What does the system typically cost here?
I would say, but don't quote me. It's between 15 and 20,000. You should try to get a contractor to give you a better price, a more accurate price, because we don't construct, so we don't really know. But it kind of runs out.
So it's, you guys design,
Yeah.
it's up to the homeowner to go out there and beat the bushes down for the system itself.
Well, we design it, and the contract, you're going to hire a contractor to construct it the way we design it.
Yeah, but you're not, you're not,
Selling the pipes.
yeah, you're not selling
No.
the product.
We can specify a tank, but you can choose whichever one you want.
You design the size and
Yeah,
the amount of.
you can choose, because it's all pretty much equal, except unless you try to design it under a driveway or something. Then we would recommend a certain type of tank that's rated for traffic. But other than that, if it's an IAPMO approved tank, which is approved by the state, then it's all equal.
On the actual construction side, as far as figuring out the elevation of the floor, so you have multiple buildings on your property on a slope, and the system is in the middle of both, so there's different elevations you're dealing with. Who determines the height of that tank and the elevation of the tank?
We'll determine it. If the land is sloping, we'll take a topographic survey of the land, and we'll make sure that wherever we place the tank,
Both sides will get.
yeah, the sewer going to flow to the tank and to the field. If it doesn't, then you're going to have to do a pump here.
If the construction is 15 to 20,000, then what is the design cost?
The design is about 3,000.
2,000.
2, around there. Depends on the situation. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less.
Since there are concrete septic tanks, plastic septic tanks, fiberglass septic tanks, is a certain septic tank recommended for certain applications, or can any of the three work?
Any of the three can work, but the concrete tank, you probably put it under driveways if you want to drive over it. The fiberglass and the plastic tanks are lighter, easier to manage, so it's probably cheaper to install. And then you can ask your contractor, we will just specify the size, and only if it's a special case, then we'll recommend a certain type of tank.
So with your design work, you also do the inspection?
Yes,
So what are the inspection costs?
it's included in the design, because we know we have to inspect it and get it approved.
That's the first time. Then yearly or every 3
Oh,
years?
that's your responsibility to hire, or you can check it yourself. We give instructions on how to check it.
A lot of people, not a lot of people, but people with construction companies, they go there and they dig their own pit and they go put their system in, they have a design, and they put their systems in themselves. So they have to come out and have a certified engineer to come and inspect their system before the health department approves it. Can they hire you guys as the inspectors? And
No.
what do you charge?
No, only the guy who designed it can inspect it.
Okay.
You cannot have
Right.
different designers inspect somebody else's work because they got to be responsible for the work.
I've read in a paper that septic systems may be required at some point, is that
It's already required for new homes.
new homes?
We're trying to pass a bill to require it when the property changes hand, but the governor didn't sign that bill yet. So it's only for new homes and remodel, I guess major remodeling, if you change the number of bedrooms. Yeah. The floors are based on bedrooms for residential.
Who does the permitting, the designer or the contractor?
Provided or what?
Any permits required from the Department of Health and say from the county?
When you go in for your building permit, they'll tell you.
So the building permit would be the contractor then?
No, the building permit going to be your architect going in for your building permits. Yeah.
So the design phase.
Yeah.
How long is that building permit good for?
Not sure. I think 1 year. I'm not sure.
You think?
Says, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's over years.
Building permits, I think it's good for 1 year. I know engineering drawings are good for 1 year. Yeah.
So since the horizontal system requires a lot of horizontal surface area, on average about 1,500 square feet, is that just for the bed, or like is there additional space you need for a septic tank?
Yeah, that's only for the bed.
So how much square footage would it need to put?
Depends on how your house is situated on your lot, because the septic tank can fit between the house and the property line if you have an arrow, because I think you only need 10 feet. So the tank can fit there, but your bed cannot fit there. So it depends on how the shape of your lot is and how the shape of your building is. So the area they gave there is only for the bed. If you don't have enough area, then we'll go to designing a seepage pit.
The vertical?
Yeah, the vertical one.
So how much room, does it have, say here about how much room the tank itself requires?
Depends how big the tank. About 7 by 11.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On the maintenance section, it says your system may require removing of the solids every 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Why does cesspool not require removal of the solids?
The cesspool, yeah, because when the tank gets full with solids, it doesn't work.
Okay.
There's a baffle on the tank that separates the solids from going into the leach field. If the solids get into the leach field, then the leach field won't work.
Is there like a safeguard to prevent the solids from going into the leach so you can catch it before it goes into the leach field?
Yes. Some guys put a filter on right before it leaves the tank, and but then if that filter gets clogged, then your system won't work. So you gotta.
But it'll save your leach though.
Yeah, so you gotta kind of check it more often, because it's a screen that filters out.
Because
the
if you
solid.
don't have that in there, and your system is full of solids, and your solids starts to flow into the leach field,
then
you're all messed up.
yeah, that's why you should check your tank every so often, yeah, to make sure that it doesn't fill up with solids. And it shouldn't if the biological system is working. Done. Okay. Karen said we're done. If you guys have any more questions, we have a booth out there. You can come to talk to us there.